Are we still recording on that thing, eh?
No, I turned it off.
Oh, okay.
Right. Anyways, we in the Dove Shack. This is Yucca at the No Pigeon Podcast.
It's your boy Slugger.
You sure about that? You look kind of confused for a second.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
You sure? All right, cool.
I think so.
All right, so we're gonna dip into a Dinesh D'Souza video called Dinesh D'Souza refutes God of the Gaps argument against religion. Now, I don't know what the fuck that means, God of the Gaps argument or whatever, but I'm an atheist. Always have been, always will be. You know what I mean? What are your views?
I'd say I'm more agnostic.
He agnostic. That means he don't know. But I know. I know there's not a God. You know what I mean? We'll delve into that to another video, but I know.
All right, let's get it.
Maybe even this video. We'll see. Hold up.
What's interesting about this business of gaps, I should tell you, is that for the atheist, a gap is a nuisance. The atheist goes, well, you know, there's this little gap. We scientists haven't figured it out yet. Tomorrow we'll have an answer, or next week, or next year.
Hold up. I'm going to Google what the fuck God of the Gaps argument is, because God of the Gaps argument. The term God of the Gaps fallacy can refer to a position that assumes an act of God as the explanation for an unknown phenomenon, which according to the users of the term is a variant of an argument from ignorance fallacy. So basically, if they don't have an answer, it's God.
Yeah.
Right? So basically, if it's an unknown phenomenon, like
if we can't scientifically explain
there was a time when you'd see what you call it, solar eclipse, and they'd be like, oh, that's God.
Yeah.
Right, that's God, because we don't have an answer for that one. That's God, right? Okay.
All right.
We getting it. Let me rewind a little bit.
Scientists haven't figured it out yet. Tomorrow we'll have an answer, or next week, or next year. This is a very unscientific way to argue. Why? Because true scientists love gaps. For a true scientist, a gap...
I love shorties with gap teeth.
I don't mind a little thigh gap, you know.
I mean that too, right?
is a clue that there may be some defect in our inherent understanding of reality. You know, when we had the Newtonian universe 200 years ago, it explained very well the motions of the planets, but there was one planet, Mercury, whose orbit was slightly off. Newton couldn't predict it. It was a few degrees of angle off, a gap. Now, a lot of scientists with Dan's mentality said, no big deal, it's just a little gap, maybe there's some matter we haven't found or something. But Einstein recognized, wait a minute, Newton's theory, this gap means that Newton's theory is in a way wrong. And when Einstein came up with his theory of relativity, he went back and remeasured the orbital precession of Mercury, and he found, wow, my theory explains it, the gap is closed.
I hope Dinesh is not going to try to argue that the Bible has all the answers, right?
I mean, yeah, I would hope he doesn't argue that too. I don't know where he's going with this.
Well, he's using scientists to refute other scientists, right?
Right.
And he's arguing, oh yeah, well, science try to come up with the God of the Gaps fallacy or whatever, and I lost my damn train of thought, so whatever, we're gonna keep going.
Closed, it doesn't mean that there was just a little bit of manure to put into the hole. Newton's entire conception of space and time was in fact inadequate. You needed a deeper understanding of reality to explain the orbital motions of Mercury. So my point is that what atheism is doing now
is
you can say a form of science worship. And if there are things that can't be explained, the atheist has a lot of confidence the brilliant scientists will figure it out tomorrow, whereas in reality, the really brilliant scientists are trying to use the gap to come up with a deeper comprehension of reality. So my point is that this God of the Gaps argument is a very unscientific mode of thinking, no less unscientific than the argument it tries to dispute.
Hold up, I gotta rewind that. I gotta grasp what the fuck he was just saying.
Trying to use the gap to come up with a deeper comprehension of reality. So my point is that this God of the Gaps argument is a very unscientific mode of thinking, no less unscientific than the argument it tries to dispute. I'll say a word about the resurrection. You notice that Dan was rebutting arguments that I never made. He said, well, we don't know that there were 500 witnesses. I never mentioned 500 witnesses. I simply said that groups of disciples on multiple occasions claim to have seen the risen Christ. That's a fact. They claim
That's not a fact. That is not a fact. He's talking about all kinds of fallacies and this and that.
Fact.
The first book of the Bible was written 90 years after supposedly Jesus existed. 90 years. Imagine 90 years with no television, no internet.
You're talking about the first book of what, the New Testament?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. 'Cause
I wasn't referring to the Old Testament.
they're both the Bible. So I was like, wait a minute, what?
That's a Torah, basically, right? Translation.
I
right?
guess.
But nah.
Either way, it's not. Either way, it's not a fact. Yeah, you can't. Say
what a
that.
logical leap, though. I noticed that with religious people, they get all, especially like religious.
It's a faith-based religion, so you can't really have
Christian,
facts.
but religious
You know,
apologists, right? Christian apologists, Muslim apologists, Jewish apologists, whatever. They like to get super intellectual. They like to talk about all this science and this and that, and then they just boom hit you with some kind of illogical leap, right?
Claim to have seen the risen Christ. There might be a better explanation. They were dreaming, they were hallucinating, they were lying, but you can't just say that they didn't claim to do it. If you do that, you're writing off all of ancient history. I mean, you could say, well, how do we know that Socrates existed? After all, it was only Plato and Xenophon and Aristophanes who mention him. The documents referring to Socrates often came after.
Have you heard that theory?
What's up?
That Socrates is actually just a creation of Plato.
Well, he just
that
made
he
him
never
up.
existed. That like there's no actual count or record of him.
No, I never heard of that.
Everything is basically from what Plato and I guess a few other symphonies and Hippocrates, whatever the fuck he used to say, right? Every story and lesson from Socrates came from them, right? So yeah, it's pretty trippy though. But
after his death, so we're not going to believe a word of it. My point is, Dan is a music pastor. He's not a historian. If you apply the standard.
Okay, I'm sorry. That was another logical leap because even if Socrates did exist and people didn't want to just denounce everything that whatever because he didn't truly exist, he never claimed to have the answer of everything. He didn't claim to have the answer for everything of all things.
He wasn't saying that Socrates was saying he had the answer to everything. They're just talking about.
No, but he was arguing.
An account of people existing. I thought that's what they were talking about.
He is, but he's arguing that if he didn't truly exist, then we basically should just shut that shit down too. And that's not the same thing because the Bible, the Torah, the Quran, they claim to have all the answers.
I mean, I guess
you ain't got the answers, Sway.
Jesus.
But you know what I'm saying? Like I don't know.
Standards of history using his method, all of ancient history would have to be. If you have a word of it. My point is Socrates and Xenophon and Aristophanes who mention him, the documents referring to Socrates often came after his death, so we're not going to believe a word of it. My point is Dan is a music pastor. He's not a historian. If you apply the standards of history using his method, all of ancient history would have to be written off. We would not believe anything we read. We wouldn't believe that Caesar crossed the Rubicon. We wouldn't believe that Alexander the Great conquered Egypt. We wouldn't believe that Socrates walked the streets of Athens. Essentially, ancient history would be reduced to complete nonsense. Thank you very much.
I think that argument is very disproportionate when you're talking about the answer to all things and people trying to find the answers, right? Because with science, they're trying to. Don't get it twisted. I don't accept scientific. What do you call it? They're like blind faith for science, right? Like the whole COVID nonsense, right? Like some people are blind with science because they just say, "Oh, well, scientists says this," right? And I understand there's scientists that accept that a child can choose their gender at 3 years old, right? So I don't blindly accept what scientists say, but when people are going out of the way and on using the scientific method to learn and try to figure things out, that's a different thing from saying we have the answers. The thing with science is that we don't claim to just have the answers, right? That's why they use the word theory, because theory is a hypothesis backed with some facts, backed with some tangible tests that have been proven or whatever, right? So yeah, I got love.
It's a lot easier to state something as a fact when it comes to science than it is about a faith-based religion. Like, I mean,
Well, that's why they say it's faith based, right?
That's what I'm saying.
You got.
You can't say, and Jesus, and that's a fact. When he said that, it was like, ugh, cringe stuff. Come on.
Yeah, that was hella cringe.
But I like Dinesh normally.
I like
and
Dinesh,
shit,
but
like
politics.
Yeah, his politics and shit. But like, now when it comes,
Well, unfortunately, there's a lot of people.
religion.
Unfortunately, there's a lot of people that are just like so intelligent with one thing, like
And so dumb.
Neil deGrasse Tyson.
right?
Amazing when he starts talking about astronomy and all that, right? Just amazing, phenomenal. He starts talking about history and even Socrates and Plato and Christopher Columbus and all that. Like it's remarkable. It's beautiful to see. But then when he starts talking about COVID and transgender stuff, I'm sorry, like I try to use my logic to the best of my ability, and some of it just it don't add up. Yeah. Some of it don't add up, right? I'm not saying COVID didn't exist. I'm not saying that.
Right, but like, there was a lot of tomfoolery with
the
COVID.
lockdowns, the trusting the
government,
trusting
and
the
vaccines. And
the medical industry. What's the terminology for them? I don't remember, but trusting them, big pharma, to tell you what we need to do. I don't know about all that. So, whatever, man. But it was a good video still, nonetheless. So,
hey, well, like I always say, till next time.
Till motherfucking next time, Batman. All right, peace.